This week on Vaticano, discover St. Joseph and his example of chastity, which has enkindled holiness in saints across the centuries and inspired popes. We sit down with Cardinal Gugerotti, prefect of the dicastery for the Eastern Churches, to discuss the fragile situation for Christians in the Middle East, and go inside the congregation of the Daughters of St. Joseph, who craft sacred vestments for the Roman basilicas. For this and more, Vaticano starts now. A needle and thread in the right hands can create something extraordinary. In the hands of the Daughters of St. Joseph, intricate details begin to appear on liturgical vestments. One of the long-standing ministries of this congregation of sisters is the creation of ecclesiastical garments, crafted for priests, bishops, religious communities, and for parishes or churches that request them.
Saint Joseph
is the man who says, "Here I am," without words. And so every day he teaches me to say to myself, to say my daily "Here I am," without grand speeches, but with grand gestures.
When we see the bishops or priests wear what we made, I feel happy and we feel happy. But it's more because the Lord is glorified. What they're wearing is what it worth to serve the Lord, because all that we made is what they put on during the celebration of the Mass.
Sisters Chinello Aniagboso and Cicera Neusa da Cruz live with the congregation of the Daughters of St. Joseph in Rome. The congregation was founded by Blessed Clemente Marchisio in 1875 in Rivalba, Italy. Their charism focuses on their dedication to the worship of the Holy Eucharist.
The spirit behind it is that our founder wants the daughters to live a life imitating the Holy Family of Nazareth, where Joseph is a father. And secondly, when Joseph was on earth, he was taking care of Jesus. He walked to take care of Jesus. But now, Joseph is no more on earth, but Jesus is still in the Eucharist. So we are like taking after our father, St. Joseph, to take care of Jesus in the Eucharist and everything that pertains to Jesus, the Eucharist. So that's how we are answering Daughters of St. Joseph. And also because St. Joseph is the head of the Holy Family, and our lifestyle is modeled from the Holy Family. Now, a hidden life, yet our work speaks loud.
Each daughter of St. Joseph is trained in the skill of making garments, such as vestments, mitres, albs, chasubles, copes, as well as altar cloths, and the bread and wine consecrated during Mass.
Our work, it's like it has a missionary dimension. Wherever this work reaches, wherever it goes, they also goes with our prayer and our intention, because while we work, we pray. In fact, our work time is like prayer time.
The relationship between prayer and works can be seen clearly in the figure of St. Joseph, a saint that is often associated with manhood and masculinity, has found a place in this congregation as a father figure for women, who can also draw inspiration from his character.
La virtù di San Giuseppe che mai mi ispira di più.
The virtue of St. Joseph that inspires me the most is that he was a man of a tender masculinity and at the same time strong, a love that guards and protects without dominating, without possessing. St. Joseph is the patron of families. In a world so noisy, St. Joseph teaches us that it is possible to be immersed in great depth without making noise. He is a model for Catholics, and especially for families, because he loved his family in an extraordinary way. And so he also teaches families today, and all Catholics, how one should live within the family and how one should safeguard the family.
Cattolici come si deve vivere in famiglia. come se deve custodire la famiglia.
As the world celebrates the feast of Saint Joseph, in Italy it coincides with Father's Day. For the Congregation of the Daughters of Saint Joseph, the day is especially meaningful, an opportunity not only to honor their patron, but also to recognize him as their spiritual father.
Anytime we are in need, we call on Joseph. We make novena, make prayers. Without fail, Saint Joseph answers us.
Qual é o sonho de Dio per me?
What is God's dream for me? St. Joseph certainly had his own dreams, but he also knew how to understand God's dream. And we see that in St. Joseph's life. Every choice he made was a concrete act of love for God. Here's my message. In every choice that you young people make in your life, always remember that God has also a dream for your life.
Há Dio que há anche sonho sulle vostre vite.
Stay with us to hear from the prefect of the dicastery for the Eastern churches about the Christian situation in the Middle East. Devotion to Saint Joseph is widespread throughout the church. Although little is said about him in the Bible, we know that his life was wholly dedicated to protecting and providing for his family.
San Giuseppe è il santo per eccellenza perché
Saint Joseph is the saint par excellence because he is the saint who above all gives us the idea of someone who watches over us, who protects us, someone who is close to us, someone who above all has experienced the trials and hardships that we also live.
Che viviamo un po' noi, no?
In the Divine Praises, St. Joseph is called Mary's most chaste spouse. With just 3 words, the line reveals the true source of St. Joseph's greatness and glory, his chastity and his relationship to Mary. It is therefore no accident that many statues and works of art depict St. Joseph holding white blossoming lilies, a flower that has long been a symbol of purity.
Il giglio bianco rappresenta la virtù della purezza, della castità.
The white lily represents the virtue of purity and chastity, but a chastity that is not only in reference to the body, but a chastity that also concerns our feelings, the heart, and our affections. When we have feelings of possession or exploitation toward the person we love, we are not pure, we are not chaste. In this way, I think that the chastity of St. Joseph, beyond that of the body, is also a chastity that concerns the mind and our thoughts.
I nostri pensieri.
For many people today, chastity is a real struggle, and one that takes many forms. From online temptations like pornography to sexual sins, growing in purity and forming chaste habits can be challenging in a society that often misunderstands chastity and sees it as countercultural. In the midst of it all, St. Joseph offers a radically different model.
He is patient and meek and humble, and he just has a lot of interior strength within him, and I would say that he just embodies true masculinity. So when I started looking of what kind of virtues I want in a future spouse, I looked to the virtues of St. Joseph.
Caroline Guiney is one of many with a deep love for St. Joseph. Her devotion began when she was a student at Thomas Aquinas College in the U.S., where she often did what many other students would do after Mass, stop to pray before his statue.
Every day I'd go and kneel in front of the statue after Mass, and I would ask St. Joseph for the courage to enter the religious life if that's what God wanted for me, and if not, that he would guide me to a man that had his virtues and help me grow in the virtues of his wife, so a man with his virtues would be attracted to me as well.
Many people turn to St. Joseph with those same intentions, praying novenas to find a good spouse, asking for the purity of their future husband or wife, and entrusting their hopes for a holy family to his fatherly intercession.
He practiced chastity, which is, having control over your sexual passions. And when you have that in order, it really allows you to love someone for their heart and soul instead of their exterior beauty, which is still a good thing, but it really focuses on the dignity of the person and loving them for their heart and soul. And I think that's what St. Joseph did for Mary. He loved her very purely, and he did it totally sacrificially, all for her, without expecting anything in return in that regard.
In the footsteps of the Holy Family, the Church venerates many other saints who embraced the virtue of chastity for the sake of the kingdom of heaven. Among them are the early Christian virgin martyrs like St. Agnes, St. Agatha, and St. Cecilia. Unlike other virgin martyrs who refused to marry their pagan suitors, St. Cecilia married and successfully convinced her husband to respect her vow and convert to Christianity, leading to a chaste, shared life of faith before both were martyred.
During the ceremony, with all the musicians playing beautifully and all the singers singing, she sang in her heart. She treated it as her own marriage to Christ, her wedding to Christ. She explained that she was already given in heart, mind and soul. It's like chastity, and Valerian accepted that.
Sister Margaret explains that everyone is called to live chastity according to their state in life, exercising temperance and self-mastery over their sexuality, in harmony with God's plan. Chastity is not about denying love. It's about loving more profoundly.
Chastity is not just a case of not being married, it's much more than that. Whatever you do, you can, if you're married, it's the same thing. You exercise chastity in the marriage. You're giving yourself, and that's what she did.
Today, more than ever, strong examples of purity are needed for the faithful to imitate. As a teacher and doctor of the Church, St. Thomas Aquinas might not be the first figure that comes to mind as a model of the virtue of chastity. But as a young man, when his family tried to stop him from joining the Dominicans and locked him in a tower, they went so far as to send a woman to tempt him, hoping he would abandon his religious vows.
As the story of his life goes, he was gifted with a vision of two angels who wrapped a cord around his waist, and from that moment forward, he never struggled with temptations against chastity. And I think that's a really remarkable aspect of the virtue and the character and the life of someone who ordinarily we think of as one of the greatest teachers that the Church has ever known, right? For St. Thomas, clarity of mind and purity of heart, purity of body come together.
Through St. Joseph and the witness of the saints, the Church continues to remind us of the importance, beauty, and glory of the virtue of chastity, the virtue that safeguards love and life in the way God intended them. Cardinal Claudio Gugerotti is one of the Vatican's most experienced voices on the Christian East. He spent decades living and serving as a nuncio on some of the Church's most fragile frontiers, from the Caucasus region to Belarus and Ukraine. In November of 2022, Pope Francis appointed him to lead the dicastery for the Eastern Churches, the Vatican department responsible for the 23 Eastern Catholic churches in communion with Rome, and he created him cardinal in September of 2023. Cardinal Gugerotti speaks 9 languages, including Armenian, Kurdish, Russian, Latin, and both ancient and modern Greek. And now, as war engulfs Iran, where many of the country's historic Christians come from the ancient traditions of the Christian East, Cardinal Gugerotti reflects on how political change affects Eastern Catholics in the region.
If the kind of political approach, which is also a religious approach in their case, changes, certainly it might be better. If, of course, the new politicians are not going to be more radical than those who are ruling the countries.
I also understand that the bishop had to leave Tehran right now just because of the situation.
Yes, because, all the embassies are putting a pressure on them, on foreigners in general, to leave the country, because, as you said, it is difficult to imagine what's going to happen.
When we speak about Vatican diplomacy or diplomacy in general, what can be achieved in regions like this, but not only limited to this, especially if you have like the Vatican, who does not have an army, who maybe does not have economic interests? Is that maybe even an advantage?
It is, definitely, because it deprives any approach of violence or of interest. And we can look at people's in the eyes, and then they can look at our eyes without being afraid, and just feeling that we have not come to teach them how to live, but to share our experience, which is an experience of love and appreciation. Sometimes it's not reciprocal, but at least our attitude is that one. And so they have nothing to lose if they speak with us, and maybe if they take some pieces of advice. So my experience in the areas, I was mainly in former communist areas, in Eastern Europe or in the Caucasus, is that they have the perception that we are not going to cheat them. So we are sincere, and for example, if they have prisoners of war, or if they have problems with refugees, with ill people, with people who have been hurt in the war, they know that the first approach will be with the nuncio, because of course he is the representative not only of the Holy Father, but of 1,400,000,000 Catholics in the world.
So is there also something the Church can do on that diplomatic level in the current ongoing war?
Yes, there is something, of course. The problem is to make these people understand clearly that the fact that we are Christians and the fact that those who bomb their cities are Christians does not mean that we have the same ideas, or that the Pope has been the one who decided to ask the rulers to bomb their own civilization, as it happened in the past very frequently. During the Iraq War, the Catholics, in fact, Catholic women were thrown away from their wells because the women said, you are Bush. And they said that we have nothing to do with Bush, we are Christians. But Bush is Christian. So you belong to the same group. When the Pope stopped, John Paul II of blessed memory, holy, he said, please don't start a war. They were completely astonished. And they came and apologized. And the Oriental patriarchs came to meet with John Paul II, and they said, thank you for what you said, because at least our Christians are no more identified with Western Christians.
In the run-up to Easter, you also promote, and you're responsible for the collection on Good Friday, Pro Terra Sancta, so for the Holy Land.
Yes.
Can you tell me a bit more about the projects that will be supported there?
Yes. You know that was an initiative that was fixed by Pope Paul VI. And the idea that all over the world, in the Catholic Church, on Good Friday, people collect money for the holy places, as we call, which means the places where Jesus was born or preached. The Franciscans are in charge of this special branch of the Franciscans, which is the Custodia. And of course, they try to work not only for guarding or rebuilding or reshaping of special important historical places, but also about the life of the Christians, of the Catholics that live in that area up to now. And so the area is not only extended to, let us say, Israel, but also to Syria, to Lebanon, all the areas where Jesus moved and where Christians live.
Thank you so much, Your Eminence, for the time.
A pleasure, and good Lent, and happy Easter.
Happy Easter already. Thank you.
Thank you.
Join us soon as we explore the profound veneration of Saint Joseph across different pontificates. Devotion to Saint Joseph has become a pious practice in the Church thanks to the personal devotion of many popes. Having inaugurated his Petrine ministry on the 19th of March, the feast of Saint Joseph, Pope Francis never shied away from speaking about his love for the foster father of Jesus and the husband of Mary throughout his 12-year pontificate.
I would also like to tell you something very personal. I have great love for Saint Joseph, because he is a man of silence and strength. On my table, I have an image of Saint Joseph sleeping. Even when he is asleep, he is taking care of the Church. Yes, we know that he can do that. So when I have a problem, a difficulty, I write a little note and I put it underneath Saint Joseph, so that he can dream about it. In other words, I tell him, pray for this problem.
Esto significa para que rece por ese problema.
Soon after his apostolic journey to the Philippines in 2015, the sleeping Saint Joseph, the man who listened to God's will even in his dreams, became a popular intercessor for Catholics around the world. Pope Francis also proclaimed the Church's first ever Year of Saint Joseph in his 2020 apostolic letter Patris Corde, with a father's heart. To commemorate the 150th anniversary, the Holy Patriarch was named Patron of the Universal Church by Pope Pius IX in 1870.
Perché già nel 1847, che significa
Already in 1847, a year after his election, he declared that the Feast of Saint Joseph should be a universal feast, because until then it had been celebrated in some dioceses, but not universally.
Quella data fu celebrata in qualche ordine, in qualche diocesi, ma non a livello universale.
From that moment on, it was universal. And then, of course, this impetus he gave at the beginning of his pontificate bore fruit, so that by 1870, the desire of the Universal Church was truly ripe.
Veramente il desiderio della Chiesa universale era maturo nel 1870.
In 1889, Pope Leo XIII released Quam Pluries, the Church's first encyclical dedicated to Saint Joseph. It is then natural and worthy that as the Blessed Joseph ministered to all the needs of the family at Nazareth and girded about with his protection, he should now cover with the cloak of his heavenly patronage and defend the Church of Jesus Christ.
Pensiamo a quanto è stato nella Chiesa.
Let's think about it. How long has he been in the Church? How many statues of Saint Joseph are there in the Church where people go to pray? And let's think about the novenas before his feasts. How many people in Italy, but also in other countries, celebrate the feast of Saint Joseph? If we enter into the homes of families with children, how many statues and images of Saint Joseph do we find? Therefore, I say yes, even today in the 21st century, we find that grain of wheat that once sowed in the ground among the faithful.
Quel chicco di grano che Pio IX ha messo nella terra, lo troviamo tra i fedeli.
Pius X approved the widely known Litany of Saint Joseph in 1909, and in 1920, Benedict XV included Joseph's name in the Divine Praises. Then in 1955, Pius XII instituted the 1st of May as the memorial of Saint Joseph the Worker.
Giovanni XXIII, lui...
Again, John XXIII. He inserted the name of Saint Joseph into the canon, precisely in the first Eucharistic prayer, placing it immediately after the Virgin Mary.
Subito dopo la Madonna.
In 2013, Pope Francis decreed the addition of St. Joseph's name to Eucharistic prayers 2, 3, and 4, thus finalizing the work initiated by John the 23rd in 1962 to include the saint in the Eucharistic prayers of the Holy Mass.
E allora noi adesso per la prossima
And so now for the upcoming feast of St. Joseph, we can see St. Joseph in his humanity.
umanità. Lui
He had the respect, the virginity of the Virgin Mary.
sposo, però doveva rispettare la Vergine.
Then he found his wife pregnant. So how many feelings did St. Joseph have in his heart that he had to rework? He had to flee to Egypt. He was poor and a stranger. He left everything behind. For what? For a child who was not even his own, but was indeed the Son of God, whom St. Joseph loved deeply throughout his life. And we, meditating on these feelings of St. Joseph, can learn a lot of our own lives and perhaps even put something right in our own lives.
E mette forse anche a posto qualcosa nella nostra vita.